Okay, what is up? What is good, my baby? We are back. Another One Punch Man video. So today, I pretty much want to talk to you guys about memory chips and the functionality of memory chips and what memory chips that you should be looking to receive onto your characters, depending on what their build is, because certain characters have certain builds, and it's not as complex as you think. At this point, it's pretty much, does this character run negative crit? Then you run those negative crit builds on them. Is your character crit base? So guess what? You run crit base stuff on them. Is your character composure reduction base with the breaks? Then that's what you run on them. So there's effectively just three types. There's not really much past that. It doesn't get any more intricate than that. So a good example being Silver Fang, right? Along with Saitama, as well as Mr. Swag Daddy himself, a My Mash. So these are negative crit characters. Now, what these characters want are these type of memory chips. Okay, so these are the type of chips that you want to be looking for. You want anything that's lowering your crit rating, increasing your stats. Now, there are different builds that go into this. So for a character like Amai, resolute defense is not something that you would necessarily prioritize, but you do want to have a bit of survivability. My mask is a unique individual because he is melee based. There are two different kinds of characters. There are your melee archetypes and your range archetypes. And so a My Mask being a melee type, you don't necessarily want to go full on attack. You do need some survivability with Amai, or you need to run a character that has, healing properties, like a Silver Fang, because there's different types within the archetypes. My Mask happens to be a support that can also double as a DPS, but the more investment that you have into him, he turns into a full-on DPS who happens to also support. So the roles kind of flip. But we're not gonna be focusing on any potentials or anything like that. It's purely just the memory chips and how good they are depending on the character. So a character like Amai, your main priority in the tier in which I would grade these chips and their effects, I would say resolute attack is at the highest, followed by resolute survival, if you can get it, just because he does need the HP. The HP really does help out. You can run a little bit of defense. It's not that big of a deal. But again, it does help. It helps out tremendously, right? And as far as stats, I would say you mainly want to focus on attack. Like, I would say a good 60 to 70% of your investment should be towards attack on a character like Amai, and then give the rest into composure if you want, HP, and then some defense. Defense actually does help out quite a bit. You take a moderate amount of damage depending on how much more, how little defense you actually have. So it actually helps out a lot. I would also say for characters, the biggest priority above everything else, the biggest priority that you need on these characters are their unique abilities. And the reason being is The difference between having their unique abilities and not having their unique abilities, well, you see there's a big damage bonus that you're missing out on. And that's just that damage buff. I'm pretty sure that's a multiplicative buff. So it's pretty it's pretty much like vital for you to get this. If you don't, you're gonna see how it's a massive difference between having this and not having this. And you can take it off and see the differences between it, but it's pretty massive. It's pretty huge, right? So let's go ahead and look at all of these, right? As far as like the what you should be looking at and what you would like to have on a character that runs negative crit. Now, as far as tiers go, I would say Resolute Survival is probably like in an A tier. Resolute Defense is probably also in like an A tier for a negative crit character. It's not like the cream of the crop, but it's definitely necessary, right? And then you have Resolute Rage, which again, a multiplicative buff, so I put this in S tier. And Resolute Attack, which I would also put into S tier, because you can see you see here how far it can actually go, right? But these these memory chips, the levels that you can get with them, is locked according to like the character's functionality as well as their potential dupes, which is a bit unfortunate that it works like that, but that's the way that they set it up for, damaging purposes. So once you get past that, I would say Indomitable Will is actually pretty nice to have, but if you're getting that low to begin with, it's probably not that good. So I would say this is more like I would say this is more like a B tier-ish sort of memory chip to have. Same thing with like Steadfast, just in Tenacity as well. It's not necessary, but it does help. Now, these sort of chips like Extreme Vigilance and Immortal Castle, these are really niche. These are incredibly niche. So, especially like that one is awful. This one is terrible. If this happens, then there's a problem. But why would you even want to run that? So I would say these two in particular, well, these three, I would just say they're in a niche tier. I wouldn't necessarily grade them, because it's not like they don't have usability, but it's not that high, right? Same thing with Indomitable Battle Will. But if I had to grade them, it would probably be like in a D tier, or like a low C tier in terms of usability on this character. Impassioned, it's pretty much high A, solid A to like S rank in terms of like, S tier in terms of like its functionality and how great it is. You see the multipliers, how far it gets up, but you're gonna most likely be sitting at 5, like at base. So now these two, Penetrating Eye and Mind Reader, these are not usable. Penetrating Eye is just a complete and total, it doesn't make sense why you would ever run this when you want negative crit to avoid those numbers shooting up where you do less damage, if that makes sense. You run Penetrating Eye on a character that runs negative crit, you're just defeating the purpose of the build in the first place. So you should never have that on there. Mind Reader is an interesting one. I'm pretty sure it has no effect on the character because of the fact that, for the same reason that Penetrating Eye is useless, Mind Reader should also be useless. I don't know if there's a negative crit damage increase that we have yeah, I don't think there's actually one that we have for negative crit damage yet, which is a bit weird. Again, you stay away from all of these bashes. These are just crit rates. Now, raid is okay if you get it, and natural selection is okay if you get it. Oath of Justice, again, okay if you get it, but these are like C tier. Bash is like, don't use those. Again, for the same reason you would not use crit on a negative crit character. And these are, again, pretty niche. You don't need these. You really don't. Just run a cleanser if it's that bad, because this isn't going to help you that much. The noticeability is pretty, negligible. Now, these are sort of special tiers. Now, they do have their uses. I will say this. Now, it's a bit up to you with your playstyle in how you use this. It says extends the forward dodge distance, which can help, but this isn't like, it's, again, I will just put these into niche tiers. You use them as you see fit if you can put them to use. I will say that I have put these to use on characters when I did have them, but they weren't a priority. The first strike, I would say this is like, this one is interesting in how you would grade this, because I would say the way I would grade first strike on any character, not just negative crit, but any character in general, this is only good if you're like balls to the wall investing into this, and at that point I don't know how useful it actually is if you don't hit this mark right here. If you don't hit that 8 mark, if you don't hit the level 8 on here, then I think it's completely useless. Now, I will say it does have significant merit in a space such as what's that game mode, the hard test next to Combat Maelstrom. I don't know how worth it is to actually run it, just because of like the damage that you do with it. Like, yeah, you're taking off like a substantial amount, but I wouldn't say that it takes priority over any of the other chips that I had in, S, A, or even B tier. This is more like again, this is a super niche one. Like, it can be good. We would have to see, like, there would have to be some sort of mechanic or a meta that pops up at some point where this is actually viable to use. And I think at that point there's probably a lot more going on than just having this, and this would be more of like a compliment than it is a necessity, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's pretty much an attack based negative crit character, and the same applies for Saitama. Everything that I said for my max. Now, as you can see here, they have different levels. Where Saitama, it actually makes a ton of sense to prioritize Impassioned as opposed to these other ones, simply because the payout is that it's going to exceed far more than whatever else it is that you have on here. So you would still prioritize negative crit as much as you can, while also prioritizing it Impassioned on the character. You know what I mean? So that's as far as it goes. There's not too much that goes into it past that. Now, seeing as how Silverfang is more of a defense oriented character, you still build them with attack, but there is a bit more of a priority on HP and defense and those sort of things. He already has built-in damage reduction, so you just want to make sure that your Silverfang, or a character like Silverfang who's meant to be, a sustained character, you want to make sure that they have as much HP and defense as possible so they do their job properly. And the damage that they put out, it's never going to be higher than a character like a Genos, definitely not a Tatsumaki, or even a Mai or Saitama, right? Because they do absurd levels of damage. It's always going to be complementary. So yes, while you can build them to be more offense oriented, and it will make a difference if you are able to do so in putting that ability of increased attack on top of, if you can complement your build with more attack while also having a substantial amount of the negative crit, and then the HP coming in and the defense coming in, then by all means go for it. Because you can run like a bruiser build, and you can it depends on what the usage is for the character, right? So if you're maining Silverfang, then yeah, I would say that you can prioritize the attack, because you're going to actively be playing the character, and you'll make better use of the abilities on average more than the AI will. Because the AI will, sit idle for a bit. The AI for Silverfang isn't that great, which is why I say you should likely be running more HP and defense. But if you're maining it, you can get away with a lot more attack than HP and defense on the character. And it just pans out better that way. I would still say, like, you can run more of a balanced build and be perfectly fine for most situations and cases. So it's not that big a deal. Now, a character like Genos, who is more composure reduction oriented, as you can see here with the points, like the game is telling you which characters specialize in what. So Genos is a breaker, Silverfang is a tank, Saitama and the characters like Saitama, whether it be regular crit or negative crit, they prioritize in crit damage and attack. They're your DPSs. These are more like specialized characters. These are the utility characters right here. So there's essentially 4 types of characters, I would say. You have your supports, the utilities, the support/utilities, the DPSs, and then you have the tanks, and then you have the specialized characters, which I would consider Genos to be a specialized character with the breakers. So there you go. You got tanks, you got support/utility, you have DPS, and then you have the breakers. So yeah, you pretty much want to be prioritizing raid break and then attack on these characters. They're going to be squishy as hell. They're not meant to take damage whatsoever. They're just meant to do their job, which is to break the enemy as soon as possible and then get out. That's their main focus. So that's what you should be prioritizing on a character like Genos. That's pretty much like raid break is basically S tier on them. Raid break in general is just hovering around A to S tier, because it is a substantial addition to the game itself in terms of that you're going to be using that no matter what. So it's always going to be somewhere as a priority, right? With the DPSs, that's more in the range of like DPSs. I know I didn't go over it before with all the other memory chips, but this raid break is for sure S to A to S tier. in terms of, viability and functionality, and that sort of thing. So here we have a character that is 1000% revolving around crit, and you can tell because of the fact that they have more levels in this particular field than other characters, such as well, you wouldn't see it on Saitama, but as you can see here, we only have 4 with Genos because his specialty is in breaking. Tatsumaki is a character that it specializes in dealing damage. So this is the way that I have her built. It is about as polished as it can possibly be. Again, these are what I would say are her highest tiers in priority. There aren't any other chips that you would prioritize here other than these. It's as simple as can possibly be. Like, once you get to this point, it's peak. That's it. Everything else is like, if you can manage to get to this point with all of these maxed, and you manage to also get like a little bit extra in terms of like a damage multiplier, then bless your heart, you have like you have done above and beyond. Like this sort of thing, it's going to take a while. Okay, like this is about a month in the making of just constantly grinding out memory chips to get to this point, right? And the reason why this is set up this particular fashion is because, again, I mentioned the potential system having a big impact on the character and how they function, right? So it's not something that you should really be looking to fit onto the build, especially if you don't have it, because you're just going to be wasting spaces. But if it just happens to roll that way and that's the best that you have at the moment, then that's fine. Keep it. Doesn't matter if it's going over the limit, right? As long as there's not extra spaces in which you can shift those chips into something, that's actually helping your build out and your damage out, then you just leave it as is. But if you're able to, if you have the ability to do so, then I would say you do that. But you also need to make sure that you're managing your resources properly when you're going for these sort of things, which is why I'm also going to go into this point of reforging, right? So with reforging, you see the number here, right? It's 4,800. It starts around like, what is it? Let's go ahead and let's take one I haven't touched yet. Okay, so this one right here, right? Let's just swap this one, right? So it starts at 1,200, and then this number doubles, and then it's going to double again, and it's going to double again. I would say for free-to-play players, you should be going no higher than the 9,600 range, like that. So that's what, the third or fourth time? Because the first time is, yeah, and then second time, third, yeah, it's like the fourth time, right? You should not be going past the 4th reforge at all. You just shouldn't be. If you are, because you're going to be short on credits like all of the time starting out, and you're going to be short on credit until you like grind out the game to a ridiculous amount. And I do mean a ridiculous amount, especially if you're free to play. Until that happens, you should not be going past the 9,600 mark. You are really pressing your luck if you go into the 19,000 range. You should not ever in your life be going to the point in which you are hitting the 32,000 credit reforge on a gold. Especially if you are not max rank, which is 15. Anything past that point, listen, when you're just starting out, whatever that gold is, You only at maximum. I'll lay it out for you. Rank 1 to 5, you should be doing no more than 2 reforges. Okay. Ranks 5 to 10, your max is 3. Okay. And then it should go no higher than that. So five to 6 to 14. Let me just say that 1 to 5, no more than 2. 6 to 14, no more than 3 reforges. Then you can start to go into 4 when you hit rank 15, because it's really not a priority for you to be reforging gears that much at that moment unless you need that push, and you really don't need to be looking towards pushing anything until you hit max rank. And the reason for this is you're going to be wasting resources, because no other chips are going to matter. Once you hit rank 15, you're going to replace all of them. So effectively look at them as placeholders. And what do you do with placeholders? They're good for the moment. They're there for a good time, not a long time. 15 until they change the rank, which won't be for a while, because people have grinded the heck out of them. Until they change the ranks, this is the end game for memory chips. Okay, so there's no reason at all for you to be reforging a crap ton. Even if you have the resources, don't do it. I don't care if you're a whale or what have you. If you have the resources, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but it's not going to be efficient. It's not. But if it makes you happy, by all means, go ahead and do it. Just know that just know what you're getting yourself into. I'm not going to force you to, do something that you don't want to do. Just know that there are consequences that come with that. And if you're willing to accept those consequences, then by all means, you go ahead and do what you do. Right? So, I don't think there's much to go over past this point. I think that pretty much covers everything. Like for DPSs, again, for crit DPSs, this is the cream of the crop. Penetrating eye is pretty much S tier. Some people argue it's A tier. It's S tier. Mind Reader is a big. It's the big one. Impassion, again, it's the big one. It's S tier. All of these are S tier in my opinion. Raid Break is more like an A tier. It's more like complementary more than it is necessary, because you have your breakers to do that job for you. Not to say that you should ignore it. I'm just saying these are the priority. If you're able to tack that on and be fine, then by all means do so. But this is what you should be focusing on with a character that has crit as their priority. Right? And then you have specific play styles for like characters, which is like that's something that can be done for another video. But that should cover the basis for memory chips. If I'm missing something, by all means let me know, and I'll go ahead and cover it. There's not really too much to say about the wheels. It's just an extension of the memory chips. These are the extensions. You should essentially be using these slots as an extension of the memory chips. So they're like secondary. You take care of the chip ordeals first, and then you delve into the wheels to see what you're missing, and then you tack that on to add and increase your arsenal. So you're like, this is an anomaly. So I'm not like, don't expect to get stuff like that. The penetrating eye is something that you get in the shop, I'm pretty sure. So you can grind for that. But more often than not, you're gonna have level 1 wheels, so you incorporate that into your build. You don't really look towards having something more than that. Okay, that's pretty much where that's where the line ends. So again, you take these and you put them onto characters as you see fit. Now I will say there is merit, because this is important as well. This is one more thing that I'll say. as far as the chips and the wheels are concerned. You're gonna get to a point, and they're gonna give some to you, but you're gonna get to a point where you're gonna start doing this because they'll do it for you. The simulation device, right? So you're gonna get to a point where you go to the simulation device, and I don't mind this. I actually need to finish this. I haven't touched this in such a long time, so I actually can go back and absolutely destroy these. But what I'm bringing this up to say, when you go and do these, the star level rewards, they're going to award you with these tokens, these chip tokens, right? And these chip tokens are going to allow you at the halfway mark to take a SR character, an SR rarity character, and just give you their wheels at level 3 for free, right? I mean, it's not for free because you got to grind for it, but you know what I mean. But then if you clear the entire thing, you're able to then free up your spaces for the chips and just tack on more bonuses and take that one slot and place it, use the wheel selection, the chip selection. You can take that, right? You can take that, and then you place it on whichever character that you deem the most worthy for it, and then use that to free up their slots and get them to have better, more flexibility with their builds, right? I think that's it, man. I don't think there's much else to cover in regards to the chips and everything. I think that was it. That's pretty much it. Because everything else, like as far as where you would go to get more of those wheels, let me say that as well. So you go to this hero association, the chip development lady, right? This is where you can split them. Don't ever split them. But what you do is you go to the arcade. Any arcade works. You go in the back of the arcade. You go in the back of the arcade. Let me just show it off, actually, so you know where this is. So I want to talk about it, and then you guys be like, well, where is it? Regardless of whether or not you should or should not know this, that's not the point. So you would go here, and you go into this arcade, right? You go into this arcade, you head into the back here. At some point through when you complete the story, I don't remember which chapter it is, so you have to forgive me for that. But you head into Abyssal Wanderer, right? And every week you are able to collect these these quests, right? So for the quests, which I haven't done yet, you're gonna get these tokens, and then you, as you saw, it's 100 for each one. You want to be grinding this weekly to increase the amount that you have, right? And you may or may not. It's really just up to chance. The percentages are pretty low, but you'll be able to increase your wills, whatever they happen to be. It's going to be completely random. It's going to be completely random until you start running into these dailies as well, these side quest dailies, which I don't know if people enjoy them or not, but they have good stuff in them. Especially, I wanna cover this one specifically, right? Let me go to the shop. I want to cover this one specifically because of the fact that it has a really, really incredible wheel that's going to like skyrocket your account. Okay, this level 2 wheel Impassion, you already saw what Impassion does, and increases your attack. So you get 2 levels for free by simply doing this for like 10 days. Okay, and you also have the limited draw ticket, which is, that's pretty important as well. The energy here, not that important. But as free to play when pushing, yeah, it actually does help a lot. It helped me, so I made that decision. But that was like before paying attention to like what that actually did, what the functionality of it actually was. So that was more like my fault, right? So let me add the city Z because there's different. Actually, instead of fast traveling that way, you can go to the team prestige. You can go to the specific one, and it's going to teleport you directly into the place, so you don't even have to like move around if that's something that you don't want to do, right? So they all have their different uses. Like you see here, raid break, right? We already talked about how good that is. So you get a level 2 impassioned in the movies. You get a level 2 raid break in the Blizzard group. And then for the movies, I'm sorry, not the movies, but the arcade in City, what was it, City F? So in City F, they have Resolute Attack, which I believe that to be a pretty good one. Because it could have been penetrating eye, but it's like, or it could have been Mind Reader, actually, and that would have been pretty good. But then you're leaving an entire archetype of character that you absolutely are prioritizing out of the mix. Like the game is prioritizing that, so it would make zero sense for them not to facilitate that those characters, because you don't really control what characters you get outside of the selector, and you get Genos, which is a breaker, so that's completely different. So yeah, you do the stuff, you go into here, and then there's a level 2 Resolute Attack. The priority is pretty much, I would say this is like a bigger priority than the limited draw ticket, but I know for a lot of people, I say that, but you see what's sold out on here, so you do what you want. For me at the time, it was this, because I was gunning for Tatsumaki. I hadn't spent money on the game yet, and so I knew that she was coming up, so that was like really, really early in the game's life cycle. We knew it was coming because we asked for it. Because it wasn't going to be her at first. I'm pretty sure it was going to be like Fubuki or something. But then we, got the devs to go ahead and, push her up. Because she was going to release later. I don't know how much later she was going to release, but she was going to release later for sure. But there was such an uproar that like, we want Tatsumaki, we want Tatsumaki, and they just, they gave it to us. But yeah, Resolute Attack, really, really good. It's going to free up your spaces and give you a lot more viability in what it is that you can build. So yes, prioritize these, do these as much as you can. Every single day. Like if you're doing them every single day, which I haven't been, obviously, like once I got the tickets, I was like, all right, I'm done. I was just tapped out, and it's not like it really isn't as bad as you think it is, but it's really just up to like how you feel about it. And at the time, I was grinding everything so much, like every little bit. Like I was looking for the different collectibles around the cities in the game, and it was just like a massive, it was so much. So you prioritize what you want to prioritize and you go from there. But I believe that's pretty much everything. I don't think there's any more or less that needs to be covered with the memory chips. I'm pretty sure that's everything. Again, if I'm missing something, feel free to let me know, and I'll pin the comment and I'll explain further as to what's necessary with the chips and how good they are. It's really just a matter of like it's going to get to the point where it's pretty subjective in terms of like builds, because you just use what you have. It's not really a matter, like you don't really focus on min-maxing until like late game. But I will say, like, again, I already said, Rank 1 to 5, 2 reforges max, and then 6 to 14, you know, maximum of 3, and then, you know, at 15 at that point, again, as free to play, you should only be going up to like 4. Like 5 is really pushing it, but if that's what you want to do, then I suppose that's fine. But any more than that, and you're just demolishing your resources for no reason. There should be no memory chips that take that much of your resources at all. Like it's never going to be worth it. Let me just say that. It is never ever going to be worth using that much of your resources. Like if you start using like 32,000, 64,000, God forbid you actually use like if anybody's using 128,000 on something, then listen, that must be the holy grail of chips, or you are an absolute whale. You're an absolute whale, or you're just a hardcore grinder, or both. That's the only time that you would ever do that. It's not recommended. Don't ever do that, please. For the love of God, please don't do that. Or whatever you believe in, just don't do it, or not, you know, or don't. So that's what I would say for all of you. Hopefully this information is helpful to you all. I only decided to make this video because I've seen enough people in the community who were asking like, yo, why isn't there a guide for this stuff? So I figured, okay, well, I'll just make one. I have a pretty good understanding of the game. You know, I am pretty decently ranked in, you know, the stuff that matters. The only thing that you can really be ranked in outside of the arcade thing that you do, the hot intense battle, I'm like top 1% to 5% in all of them with multiple characters. But you know, people don't really focus on that. I think that's more of a that's more an indication of skill if you want to go that route, as opposed to, you know, who happen to get the luckiest when playing the game of gacha and rolling for characters, or rolling for gears, and rolling for chips, and rolling for the wheels. Like at that point, it's just a matter of like, okay, you got this and I didn't get this, or I got this and you didn't get this. And at that point, it just, you know, the lines get blurred and what you defined as, you know, skill. But I would say, yeah, I would. I have a good enough reputation in terms of, like, you know, I mean, you know, top 60. I would say that's, you know, fairly decent. I'm not the best by any means, but I am in the top percentile. And I wouldn't say, like, you know, that's the end all be all to it, but it's I can't be just like, I'm not spending a crap ton of money on the game, is what I'm saying. So by me not spending a crap ton of money on the game, like, I still have to play. Like, I'm regardless of how much you know spend on the game, if you're not good, then, you know, you won't be carried that much. I mean, if you have P6, you know, everything, and with the arms being, you know, maxed out, then yeah, you're gonna have an easier time. But this should put your mind at ease. Like, I'm not just like some regular individual. I actually do play the game at a decently high level. I still consider myself to be, you know, fairly casual, and my definition of casual is me not spending like hundreds to thousands of dollars yet on the game. Because at that point, I would consider myself, you know, a hardcore player. But as it stands right now, I'm pretty, you know, free to play plus, I would say. Let me just say that I'm not. Well, am I free to play plus? I spend money on the game. I can't say that I'm free to play plus. I'm basically in a dolphin range. Let me just say that I'm a dolphin. I'll say that I'm a dolphin right now. I haven't decided on whether or not I will spend more money on the game, simply because, you know, I got what I want, and I'm always getting what I want, and I pretty much just feel like I can save for more stuff that I want. I truly believe like in the summertime there's going to be like a seasonal banner of some kind. They're going to do it. I have my full faith in this. So that's when you're going to see me spend a crap ton or not spend a crap ton, depending on what they do there. It's all based upon the seasonal banners and the characters that they release. And listen, this is one of the money grabbers right here. This one, and her especially. Come on now. Do I need to say more? Like, especially Fubuki, bro. I listen, if I'm their developer team, if you guys are in the developing team and you're listening to this video, listen, man, that's the way you do it. And you can do Beachwear Saitama or Beachwear Genos. That works too. It does. Even Speed of Sound Sonic. But if you really want the money, those are the big three: Fubuki, Summer Tatsumaki, and Summer Saitama. Those are your big money grabbers. The rest of them are pretty irrelevant. Genos is like right under that, but past that, there's like at that point you're just getting into, you know, characters that don't really matter that much. As far as the ones that are currently released, if we're talking about unreleased characters and not seasonal, then, you know, the Geros, the Flashy Flashes, the Metal Bats, those sorts of characters, yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, that I don't think there's anything else for me to cover as far as the marine ships are concerned. So I'm gonna just end it there. I want to thank you all for watching. If there are any other suggestions that you might have in terms of like what videos you will want to see based around, you know, the characters and the play styles and how to use them, I can do showcases for characters that I have, and just, you know, simply doing, you know, gameplays for characters, because if you didn't know, you can go into the details here, and then you go into, you know, they'll show you here. But as far as doing the demos for characters, which I think they should do, like, you shouldn't just have it set to where if you have a character you can do the demo, because what's the point of that? You shouldn't be able to trial the character only when they're available, just so people can get a feel for what it is. Like, if they like the character's play style, whenever the character makes a return, they can go ahead and do a summon for the, you know, the character that they want. But that's just, you know, that's a quality of life thing. That's really what this preview and guide should be, but they just haven't put it to use yet, and I have no idea why. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. It greatly helps on the channel, and I appreciate you all coming in to watch me, man, and chill out with me, man. I appreciate you guys. And with that being said, I will see you all in the next video.